Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's time for your DC Spotlight for the week of September 11th, 2025. Actually, I guess it should be September 10th. September 10th is Wednesday, but either way, I mean, the 11th is this week as well. But yeah, Wednesday is the 10th. Anyway, before we get started, I hope everybody got a chance to head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel and check out our DCKO special episode where Rocky and I are joined by our friend Steve. We do picks for every round of the DCKO tournament. And it was a whole lot of fun. Some picks we made with the heart, some picks we made with the head, some picks we made seemingly at random. But it was a lot of fun. You know, at times we were all defending our picks. At times it was interesting because I know there were times where I was saying, okay, the reason I'm picking this person and not this person is because of this reason. And then I'd go down to a later pick and I would say the reason I'm picking this person is, and not this person, is for the exact opposite reason that I picked the person the first. So yeah, it was matchup dependent, but it was a whole heck of a lot of fun. I also mentioned before we get started, during that episode that for the first time in 14 years of doing this, I'm asking for a little support from the audience. I had a budget for New York Comic Con to attend and cover the show. Fortunately, I had an unexpected expense. There was over $3,000, and it completely wiped out my budget for New York Comic Con. So as of now, you know, if I had to leave tomorrow, I wouldn't be going. But I really want to go. I've already had made commitments to cover certain things and do certain interviews with people. So I really would like to go. So I've never charged for my content. That's not changing. I won't be charging for content. I'm not starting a Patreon or anything like that. But what I am doing is just asking if anybody wants to donate. I have a link and a QR code. If you go to my Twitter or my Instagram, it's pinned. There's a little QR code there you can scan. And you can just donate. Any amount helps, you know, $1, $2, whatever. If everybody that checked out the DC Spotlight every week just gave $5, you know, price of a Starbucks coffee, I'd make it, no problem. So anyway, I hate asking. It feels weird to me. When I talked to a few people about it, when I had to like cancel my accommodations that I was sharing with other people, they're like, well, why don't you just go to your audience? You know, like you're producing this content for them. Maybe they want to be sure that you're there. So I thought, well, you know, that's not a bad idea. It feels a little weird, but again, I mean, I see other people, other comic YouTube channels and what have you that do the Patreons and they're constantly asking for money and what have you. So I was like, I haven't ever done this and it feels a little strange, but I mean, I spent a lot of money on my website and to host all the audio and all the equipment and traveling to these shows and doing interviews or whatever. It's all money out of my pocket. And again, I've never gotten a dime back for doing it. So it's like, yeah, maybe it's time to you know, ask for a little bit of help because of this, you know, unexpected expense. So anyway, that out of the way, let's go ahead and open up a pack of these Superman cards as we've been doing in the last few episodes here. So again, these are these Upper Deck cards, which I got at San Diego Comic-Con. The Fleer Brilliant. These will be in stores later this year, but obviously under a different version. Won't be exactly this version. Nice. So, yeah, first card, Imperiex, which looks really cool. Next up, we have little Ma and Pa Kent action. All right, my light is so bright, so hard to show. Next, we have classic covers. Man, I already got a duplicate. Look at that. I've only opened like 5 packs. It's Action Comics 1. Yeah. Then we have a Parademons. I don't know how you can see that.
Nice. Yeah.
And then finally, Jimmy Olsen. So that was that. The Imperiex was pretty cool. The Parademons was kind of cool. Yeah. The rest of that was probably a little underwhelming. It's probably my worst pack yet. But anyway, I'll continue opening those as we go along. So big week this week. There's I think there's 14 books in our press folder. We had Birds of Prey in it last week, but Birds of Prey is actually this week. So we're gonna kick it off with Birds of Prey just to kind of get it out of the way. A very Barda heavy issue this time. So Kelly Thompson is the writer. Cliff Richards handles the majority of the art, pages 1 through 20, and then Sami Basri on 21 through 26. Adriana Lucas on colors, and Clayton Cowell on letters. And as I give those credits, I realize we usually give an overview of how the week was, and I forgot about that. So let's jump back real quick. I thought it was a solid week. There wasn't anything that really blew me away. There were a couple of books I'd say were well above average, and some others that were above average. But there was a lot of average stuff this week. But again, I think that the all-in era of DC is going well. I think that there's a lot of exciting stuff with DCKO and whatever, we talked about the episode that we did. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a really strong week. What about you, Rocky?
Yeah, there were some. There were 6 comics that I really liked. The rest I thought were mediocre. So my top 6 comics. I know we talk about our top 5, but my top 6 comics I really enjoyed and depending on my mood, I could easily move them around from slot to slot. So still pretty darn good. So yeah, I mean, yeah, just continue to enjoying DC. Yeah.
Yeah, so getting back to that Birds of Prey, number 25, as I mentioned, a very Barda heavy issue. And I did really enjoy the first scene where she's like at a quarry punching rocks to kind of get out her frustrations of having been taken over by ink. But all that being said, it only comes in at number 8 for me. I mean, I love Barda, and she really takes over this issue and makes it a lot of fun. But it didn't have a whole lot of forward momentum for the story. So that's why it's a little bit, I ranked it a little bit lower this week. So, and I'm trying to find the covers. There we go. Just to see if there's any of the variant covers that I really like. Well, there's a Gabriel Del Otto cover that has Barda featured prominently, which is pretty cool. She's holding her, what's it called? Her nega rod or her, whatever her weapon is. She's kind of holding it over her shoulder. That one looks pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, what are your thoughts on Birds of Prey?
I thought I'm not really impressed with the story. It's amazing to me that Kelly Thompson is writing Absolute Wonder Woman and is just really writing intriguing stories for Absolute Wonder Woman, and Birds of Prey just feels to me to be treading water. I just find the story doesn't really seem to be going much anywhere. I'm not really interested in it. You're right. There's always some. Kelly Thompson's really good with Birds of Prey, with the occasional character moment here and there and some snappy dialogue. So I'll grant her that. But this series from the beginning has never really had a compelling plot or narrative for me, and it continues to sort of drag its feet. And this really was a talking heads issue for me that I thought was just riddled with a bunch of hot air, and it could have had far more substance. But we got to know this other character. I mean, Ink is now betraying the team that she was on. Kelly Thompson, to her credit, is at least trying to link Ink to the original, the Meridian character that went back in time with time travel technology that she had created. And so there's some time travel shenanigans. And this, so who knows, this might have some potential moving forward, but it just seemed to be dragging its feet a little bit. So I ranked it at number 10 for myself.
Yeah, like I said, number 8 for me. The strength of the series is in the character interaction. That's always been the case, and I'm fine with that. But again, like, if that's the strength of the series, this actually has a little bit less character interaction, I felt like. And yeah, there just wasn't anything about it that kind of stood out. But I seem to be enjoying it more than you, I would say. Anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Batman Gotham by Gaslight, A League for Justice, Chapter 3. We have Andy Diggle and Rob Williams as writers. I'm not sure if this is the first issue that Rob Williams has joined him as co-writer. It's been Andy Diggle and Leandro Fernandez for the most part. Fernandez handles the art. Matt Hollingsworth on colors and Simon Bolin on letters. We've really been enjoying this series. It definitely is, Elseworlds, as it were, with a kind of a Justice League that's set in that Batman Gotham by Gaslight universe, if you will. So it certainly is a different take and outside of continuity. So for me, this came in at number 7. And it's not to say that I didn't enjoy it, but again, this is one of those ones that just based on the strength of the week, that it didn't quite make my top five. Where do you have it, Rocky? Or do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's in my top three. This was in my top three, and I'm loving this. I've been loving this from the beginning. I continue to love this. I think this has been an Elseworlds tale that I find this far more enjoyable than the original Gotham by Gaslight. I think this improves upon it. This is, after all, a League of Justice. That's what this is forming. The prophecy of an 1860 when Superman's ship landed on Earth. There's so much lore wrapped around it, focusing on the doom of Krypton. It was revealed in the previous issue that the doom of Krypton actually refers to Zod himself. Zod, who now has been sort of discovered and unleashed by Lex Luthor. And so, I mean, you've got this incredible greatest criminal mind. You got these two narcissists having a conversation with each other. Lex Luthor, supplicating himself before Zod, but at some point he'll likely betray him. And meanwhile, of course, we have the League putting together, what they have to do with Constantine, with the Phantom Stranger, with Superman and Batman, getting to know each other a little bit more. There's a really great scene where Bruce Wayne watches, this Clark Kent speak at the graveside of his parents, and it's very touching. We get to see them. We see Wonder Woman dressed more in Western garb. Same with Alan Scott Green Lantern, and we begin to see these characters actually get to know each other, and it works. It really works. It works particularly well, and the character work here just is what sort of pulls me into it. I love that Martian Manhunter. They stumble upon Cyborg. They stumble upon. Of course, there's also Ra's al Ghul, and Ra's al Ghul does control a League of Assassins, and his daughter Talia is part of that. But ultimately, they were, even though originally we thought of them as villains, in fact, they were. They were trying to protect the Earth from the doom of Krypton returning, and ultimately, this issue builds upon until ultimately they get to the end, where the League confronts Zod, who's having, of course, in the middle of his conversation with Lex Luthor. He's gone around. He checks out the ruins of Themyscira, and again, there's what Andy Diggle and Rob Williams, the writers, have done here. They've captivated myself by creating this lore, by creating this setting, and I personally love it. It's easy to follow. It's easy to read. It's exciting Elseworld stuff, and it's you don't need to get tied up in so much continuity. This is tight. You get the original Gotham by Gaslight. Yeah, then you get the first volume. We're into the second volume. This is easy to follow, entertaining stuff, and it's definitely worth continuing to check out. And this easily made my top three this week.
Yeah, I don't even know if you need to read the original Gotham by Gaslight. I mean, you should because it's good. But I think if you read the first part of this, because I remember when this got to issue, the first volume of this one from Diggle and Leandro Fernandez got to issue 5, and we were like, man, there's only one more issue. How are they going to wrap it up? And apparently the guys, they watched, Diggle and Fernandez watched the show, which is awesome. So hi guys, if you're watching this week's episode, and they reached out on social media, and there's like, oh, there's a whole nother 6 issues coming, and obviously the second volume they've changed it from Gotham by Gaslight Kryptonian Age to League for Justice, which is great because obviously we wanted more. So again, I don't think you need to read the original Gotham by Gaslight Batman story. I don't know if it's really expensive. I mean, because I know it's much older, but I'd say if you read the first volume, the Kryptonian Age, you can get that in collected editions from Diggle and Fernandez. That's going to tell you everything you need to know for this volume, and you should read it because it's awesome. But Rocky's right. I mean, this whole world, the Gotham by Gaslight world, is easy to jump onto. You don't need to worry about what's going on with what happened in Absolute Power, what's going to happen with KO or Darkseid or whatever. This is completely self-contained. I love the voices that these creators are giving the characters. And I did look while you were talking, Rocky. This is the first issue that Rob Williams is helping Andy Diggle on. And they're both from the UK. I imagine they probably knew each other, before, and they may even have worked on things before. I've interviewed both of them. They're both super nice guys. So I say all that to say, if we're bringing more creators into this Gotham by Gaslight universe, hopefully it keeps expanding, and we can keep having more stories in this universe. Even beyond this, it doesn't mean that it has to be another Justice League. We could just focus on one or two of these characters, or maybe we even go and discover new characters. So anyway, let's move on. I think I gave my ranking right. This was just a little bit lower for me, and again, it's just based on the strength of the week. Where is it? It's coming in at came in at number 7 for me. So all right, up next we have Fire and Ice When Hell Freezes Over from writer Joanne Starter, Stephen Byrne on art, Ariana Mayer on letters. And Byrne obviously coloring his own, and I love the Byrne art. It's fantastic. I love the interaction between ice and fire and ice. I guess I should say it that way, since that's alphabetical and how it sounds most most normal to everybody, because that's how it's always said. And this came in 13th for me. And again, I don't. Rocky and I were talking about the rankings before we started, and I don't mean that to say this is bad by any stretch. Right? Like, I had a hard time ranking because I enjoyed everything this week. And so the way I had to judge it was like, okay, if I had to read these all again, which ones what would I want to read first? And I went through it that way. And this was last. So it's not that I wouldn't want to read this again. And I may in fact do so. Like, I think reading the first Joanne Starr Fire and Ice volume, and then reading this would all together in one sitting would be a lot of fun, would be enjoyable. And again, I think she has the relationship between fire and ice down cold, no pun intended. And I love it. And it's not just that relationship, but kind of similar to Birds of Prey in a lot of ways, where it's the relationship between these characters, and it's funny. Ma Kent gets a moment in this issue where she's kind of fooling people, whatever. So yeah, there's a lot to love about this, but unfortunately something had to come in last, and I did enjoy it. So anyway, anything to add, Rocky? Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I ranked it lower too, came number 11 for me, but for all the right reasons, quite frankly. And it's because right now, there's so many different kinds, there's so many different tones and styles at DC right now with the various comics. And this one is just, it's fun. To me, this reminds me, for some reason, I remember I watched the show. I used to love watching a show called Northern Exposure about a northern town, and it was just, I loved watching the show every week because you got to meet the whole people of the town, and then there was the main doctor character, and then he always he was in love with this other woman he was always trying to woo, and for some reason, when I read this, and this is the second volume, Joanne Starr has done such a good job. Not just Fire and Ice, but there's other characters here. We really know the town of Smallville. I think this is the first time ever that I've ever really feel I've gotten to know the town of Smallville, Kansas. And if you'd have told me that I would get to know the town through Fire and Ice, Fire and Ice series, I'd have told you were crazy. But yet somehow that's what's happened here. And it's a little bit, the tone of the story isn't exactly something that I would necessarily embrace. But the reality is, it's very well written, and it is funny, it is comical, and I find it more humorous than Harley Quinn, uh, and uh, and I really like the slight artistic change from this volume from the first volume. Fire and Ice are sexy as hell, and the power switch and how the power dynamic worked here in this series, it plays out pretty well, and a pretty good end to this series or this miniseries.
Yeah, I agree that I find it more humorous than Harley Quinn. The other thing about it is it has so much heart, and Harley Quinn, it really doesn't. Unfortunately, I think it's trying to, but it hasn't gotten there yet. But Star, she's so passionate about these characters. I mean, she's been on the show a couple times, and I've talked to her a few times, and she talks about that Giffen DeMatteis, Maguire era of the Justice League, the Bwahaha era as it's known, as being like a huge inspiration for her when she was growing up to wanting to become a writer and specifically to write comics. So her love for these characters, it comes through, and not just Fire and Ice, but the other supporting cast, around them, which I think that's the difference, because it comes through. She's having so much fun and cares so much about these characters that that comes through. And yeah, you have the variant cover that I was going to mention on the screen there. It's that one's really fantastic. I want to give
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Credit, and the main cover from Terry Dodson is great as well. But that cover is from it's Todd Knock. Actually, I should have been able to recognize that. Yeah. The Todd Knock covers is fantastic as well. So, all right, let's move on. Up next, we have Green Lantern Corps issue number 8 from writers Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams. Fernando Passarin and Eau Claire Albert are the artists. We have colors by Arif Prianto, and color plays a big role in this issue because we're still dealing with the Starbreaker supremacy, where a lot of the emotion from the universe has been bottled up, if you will. Everybody in the DC universe is cut off from their emotion, and obviously, with the lanterns being powered by the emotional spectrum, that's a problem. So this is part 4 of 6 for the Starbreaker supremacy. What are your thoughts on it, Rocky? You gave me your ranking. I can't remember. Did this come in your? Yeah, it's in your top 5.
Well, when I gave you my top 5, I never. I can't believe this. I actually forgot this to put this in rankings. And then when I squeezed it in, I thought about it, and I put this at number 6 for me, just out of my top 5. And the reason for it is, and you're not going to hear this from, this is very rare that I'd ever say this, because I guess I've been so excited to this. I'm just, I thought that this was too much happened in this issue. I thought this was a little rushed, and I was actually disappointed by how quickly the emotional creatures that were trapped within the source wall, when they were released, I was disappointed by how quickly they were defeated and decimated all in one issue. I was disappointed with how the I guess the Starbreaker lantern, how that was destroyed by Nathan walking into it. There's a scene here where Nathan looks at Hal and Carol Ferris, Star Sapphire. Of course, they temporarily have they got the willpower, they got the emotions back because of the creatures that they're powered up by. And because he can because Nathan looks at them and he's without emotion, because he's got the connected to the Starbreaker power, he can objectively evaluate and judge them, and he views their love as real objectively with no emotion. Objectively, he looks at them and he's inspired by them, and so he walks into the Starbreaker lantern, and without any explanation, the Starbreaker lantern just explodes, and Nathan exclaims, "This feels good." And I don't know. I guess I didn't really get it. I didn't get it, how that would destroy, how he could, how Nathan alone could destroy the Starbreaker lantern. It was unclear to me how the Starbreakers could, basically one was actually seemed to be eaten by one of the emotional creatures, and they were eaten by the Starbreakers on the inside. I just thought the explanations, I would have liked a little bit more explanation. I would have liked to have 2 or 3 issues on this battle sequence, only because Morgan Hampton and Jeremy Adams are so damn good at choreographing fights, and there's some fantastic fights in art here. And I guess I'm just spoiled. I just wanted it drawn out a little bit more. I wanted the action. I wanted this to be another issue long, to be honest. And I guess that is, I don't know if that's an underhanded compliment, but I was just, I wanted a little bit more. Maybe I'm mixing. Maybe you can feel free to explain to me maybe what I missed, but I didn't quite. I wish there was a little bit more explanation there, because this was such a cool build-up that I was expecting a little bit more of a little bit more. But it was still good. Still one of the best comic on the stands, but just enough to put it out of my top 5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it comes in my top 3, and I actually agree with you on this one. I too would have loved to have this expand, like double size issue, even 10 more pages, because you're right. There is a lot of stuff that happens, and if it had a little bit more room to breathe, or maybe not even room to breathe, maybe I'm not necessarily saying we need quiet moments in this issue, because this issue is fast paced. A lot of stuff happens, and I'm fine if it's just 10 more pages of more fast paced. But even with 10 more pages of fast paced, we would get a little bit more explanation. Yeah, what exactly does Nathan do when he walks into the Sorrow Lantern that breaks it, right? We don't know. And we may be, I mean, Jeremy's really good at going back and calling back to things that he's written, previously, and explaining them. There's no throwaway lines when Jeremy is writing. And obviously Morgan, who's less experienced than Jeremy, is probably hopefully learning that alongside as he's working with Jeremy and what have you. So I agree with you. I would have loved this to not necessarily last longer, but it just needed more pages now. But I'm not blaming Morgan and Jeremy, because I imagine with what's going on with DCKO that, this storyline has to be finished before the KO event starts. So they very well may have had it when they outlined it and originally came up with the idea and plotted it out. They very well may have, planned it to be longer, and then we're told, well, no, because by this date you have to have finished your story. So I don't know what's going to happen in the Starbreaker Supremacy in issues 5 and 6 that still are to come. So it might be like, if I had this issue take longer, right? Like if the events of this issue took half of the next issue of Green Lantern, let's say, then the events of Green Lantern that are about to happen in the next issue of Green Lantern would be truncated or would bleed over into issue 6 of, which would be the part 6, I should say. So what I'm saying is, it could be that when all is said and done, and it's like, well, would you rather have this battle be a little truncated and condensed, or would you rather have the events that are happening in part 5 truncated, or would you rather have the final part 6 be truncated? I very well might decide, well, yeah, shrink this battle down. You know what I'm saying? Because again, we just don't know. And it has everything to do with the fact that they only had 6 issues. In my mind, this probably could have been a 6 or a 10 issue, or a 8 or a 10 issue event, but they only had 6, and a lot of that has to do with, the editorial schedule. So I don't hold them, accountable for that at all, because again, it's the nature of comics. But I 100% agree with you that a little bit more explanation into specifically what's going on with Nathan, because he is, how he destroyed the Lantern, but also I appreciated the moment where he, as you mentioned it, he looks up and he sees Carol and he sees Hal, and he kind of comes to a realization. But I'm having to read a lot into it, because we never got as much kind of context for Nathan as I wish that we did, because he's become such an important character, and I just don't know him, well enough. I can extrapolate, and I can put kind of my own thing on it, which, headcanon, as you and I often call it. And it's like, okay, I can look at what's going on with Nathan, and it's almost like his whole reason for teaming up with Starbreaker or whatever is like, he was in so much pain from channeling the sorrow that came from the fractured spectrum that he was willing to do anything, including these horrible, evil things that Starbreaker has been doing, and he's helped that along just to not feel the pain. But now that he's not feeling the pain, it's almost like his and again, this is all my theory. So he's actually able to think clearly for the first time. So it could very well be that the moments that we're getting of Nathan in this issue are closer to who Nathan really is than we've seen, ever. Because right when we see him, he's in that honeymoon phase of the relationship, right? Which a lot of us have probably been in. And you put on the rose-colored glasses and you think everything is better than it actually is, because you're in the midst of it and it's new and it's exciting. And then when you're on the other end, and I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this, and it's horrible, the heartbreak, you can't think straight, it consumes your every waking moment, you just want to be with the person, you're devastated, you're crying. That's not true who you truly are either, right? Because you're going through the pain and the heartache or whatever, and it's in that state where he's then exposed to the sorrow from the fractured spectrum for the first time, and then engulfed by it, and then feeling that pain. So it's almost like the pain was his personality. We've never really gotten to see who he is. He very well may be a good person, a good character, a moral character. And so now that he doesn't have that pain, and he looks up at Hal and Carol, and he realizes the mistake. Maybe her and I weren't meant to be together. Clearer heads have prevailed here. And so he walks into the Sorrow Lantern and destroys it. How he does that, yeah, it would be great to have that explanation. Am I right in my theory? Yeah, it would have had a little bit, if the story had a little bit more space, a few more pages, maybe that could have been explained a little bit better. But again, I don't think due to anything that Morgan and Jeremy have any control over. So, and I agree with you also that, go ahead.
Finish your thought first. I'm going to go off on a tangent a bit.
Okay. I was just going to say, I also agree with you that seeing a little bit more of the entities, the Spectrum entities, would have been cool, because it's great. We haven't seen them in a long time, so to have them come back. But based on sort of the deal with the devil that the Lanterns made, you commented on it last time, about how the entities would be willing to say or do anything to get out from the other side of the Source Wall and come back. And I completely believe they had every intention of double crossing the Lanterns. I'm not sure we've seen the last of them now that they've come back and they, seemingly are dead or whatever. But I could completely see, once the Lanterns, this is a 2-part thing, right? They've got to destroy the Sorrow Lantern, and then they've got to rebuild the other Lanterns. So it wouldn't surprise me when they rebuild the other Lanterns for the various different emotional states or colors or whatever you want to call it, if those entities remanifest themselves and cause problems later down the line, which I really hope that that's what happens. And then the final thing that I'll say about this issue, and why it still makes my top 3, despite the fact that, yes, maybe it feels a little bit like 10 pounds of action in a 5-pound bag, is the Fernando Alclair pencils and the Auclair inks, Albert Auclair inks. Like, the art in this is amazing. It's so fantastic.
You really
so
see that
characters.
visceral violence. You see, that this is a war. Especially how I actually think the Starbreaker Corps looks more cool and awesome than the Green Lantern Corps, to be quite honest with you. They look so awesome. There's that one page spread where they're charging up there in front of the Starbreaker Lantern. That looks awesome, and they look ready for battle. And it was that actually made me feel that, oh my God, and this was a battle that ended almost basically in a tie. This issue, all the Lantern emotional creatures are destroyed along with the Starbreaker Lantern. They're now basically it's now even. They're both sides are even, and they're headed back to Oa to finish this war. So it's going to be a pretty epic next issue.
Yeah, and again, like, the battle is fantastic. I prefer the look of the Lanterns because they're more colorful, and I just think that works. But it's great. We get hints of what the glove has been all along, that Kelly, the Teen Lantern, has been wielding. But the final thing that I wanted to mention about the art was that it's not just those action sequences, which have so many characters, had to be a ton of work for the artist. But even the quiet moments, right? I mean, I just gave you guys the explanation of what I thought Nathan Broom had gone through, and there's so much of why I think those things is because of the emotion in his face, because of his body language and what have you. So I got to call out those moments as well. It's not just the action that's done really well by the art team. It's the quieter moments, the emotional moments as well. So, all right. Anything else to add, Rocky, before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, Krona's gauntlet. We all want to know what that gauntlet is. And I remember way back in the day, Brian Bendis, when he introduced the Teen Lantern, it was a Brian Bendis created character. There was rumors that it was going to be, that it was Krona's gauntlet, and at some point we're going to see Krona. So this is a long time coming. Now, Jeremy Adams and Morgan Hampton are obviously, I'm sure they have their own spin on it, obviously, but I think it's awesome. The suggestion here that maybe Krona through the gauntlet is taking control of Simon Baez. I mean, this is pretty cool stuff. So this is the wild card. This might be the Starbreaker Corps might not be ready. I mean, maybe at some point in the pivotal issue, it might be this Krona gauntlet that turns the tide in favor of the Green Lanterns. But then once you defeat the Starbreaker Corps, you might have to deal with a very Krona-possessed Simon Baez. So anyways, good stuff, great stuff. The more I talk about it, maybe I should have put it in my top 5, but it is what it is. But good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, you never go wrong with putting a Jeremy Adams book in your top five, because then you end up talking about it, you realize it's, better than maybe even you thought. Um,
Yeah.
and I did want to call out. There's a cover by Travis Mercer that's really cool. Um, and I know there may be a lot of people. I'm not a particular fan of her style, but Rian Gonzalez has a Joe Mullen cover that's like one of those like paper doll covers where you could like cut it up and dress her as a paper doll if you wanted to. I don't suggest and never would suggest you cutting up your comic, especially the cover. But it's your money. Do what you will. So anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have CORT or Court, Children of the Round Table. This is from writer Tom Taylor, art by Danielle Di Niculo, colors by Rain Barretto, letters by Wes Abbott. I know this has been highly anticipated, and there was some question about it. Like so many of the recent Tom Taylor series in DC, obviously with the exception of Detective Comics that he's doing now. But when you think of things like Deceased and Dark Knights of Steel, and I can't even remember what the follow up to Dark Knights of Steel was, or if he even did. I mean, he did have the Endless Winter, but he didn't write that, but he had backups in it or whatever. But my point being that a lot of the stuff that he's done, and even stuff he's done over at Marvel, are outside of continuity. It's outside of continuity, obviously with Deceased or whatever, everybody dying. That's not, really what's going on in the main universe. But if there's any, if anybody's confused about whether or not this is in continuity, it is. It is in the main DC continuity. And I loved it. I thought it was really, really fun. Based on Dark Knights of Steel and how that didn't really resonate with me to begin with, I didn't expect to like this as much as I did. And I didn't even read it ahead of time, even though I had access to it. I saw a lot of people reading it and saying how great it was, whatever. I did read the preview. There was like a 4-page or 2-page preview that was in some of the back of some of the DC books a few weeks ago. And I did read that. And again, it didn't speak to me. So that was another reason that I didn't go and seek it out and read it early. And shame on me. This makes my top 5. I should have known better with Tom Taylor doing it. And the other part is that generally speaking, I like the legend of King Arthur. I like Arthurian legends and stuff that leans into that. So, and this definitely has a kind of a young feel, if you know what I'm saying, in terms of, obviously the main characters here are all young. They seem to all be around 12 years old, 11, 12 years old. And the whole conceit of it is that King Arthur has sent magical weapons through time, and each of these magical weapons is imbued with kind of the spirit or intelligence, personality, whatever you want to say, of various knights of King Arthur himself. Excalibur is one of the weapons, but then there's a spear and there's like a shield, I think, and some other. Anyway, that Sir Lancelot and Sir Gawain and that sort of thing. So anyway, there's like this fiery ball that falls from the sky and lands near where these kids are about to start an adventure. We don't know what that adventure was, but it turns out it's going to be a completely different adventure because these weapons, once they land, once the fireball lands, the weapons are revealed, and the weapons seek out each person individually, each of the children individually, and they're going to have to wield these weapons. But the weapons can speak to them as well, and they're the ones that, because they're thinking, hey, we need to call the authorities and what have you. And the weapons are like, no, you need to run away, you need to hide. There are going to be evil forces that are going to come looking for these weapons. So it starts off with this big, grand, epic scale of a young adventure. So, things like the Goonies or Never Ending Story, stuff like that, and just so fun and so bright. I think Rain Barretto on the colors does a fantastic job. Obviously, the Danielle Di Niculo, his art tends to be a little bit more in that sort of all ages. I think I've mentioned it before, but this is the same creative team that did Seven Secrets over at Boom. Tom Taylor writing, Danielle Di Niculo on art. So I was surprised how much I enjoyed this. I thought it was going to be a little bit more sort of, it was going to feel derivative of a lot of those, young adventure stories that I talked about, from other mediums and what have you. But this did feel, while not completely original, it did still feel fresh. And although I'm generally not the biggest fan of the Di Niculo art, I thought his style worked for this because it brought a youthful energy to the story as well. So I was surprised how much I enjoyed this. It made my top 5. And if you have a younger comic fan or somebody that you would hope to turn into a comics fan in your life, this is the perfect book to give them, even though it's in continuity in terms of being in the main DCU. I don't think that it's going to, like, they're not going to have to go and read DCKO to understand what's going on in this book, right? Like, it's not going to tie in that closely. Would we possibly get like a Superman, a Wonder Woman, a Batman cameo? Yeah, that's possible. But it doesn't mean that you need to go read any other books. This, I think, will stand on its own, and again, be very sort of continuity light, if you will. But it's a great book for younger readers if you're trying to get somebody interested in the DC universe. So, what were your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Well, I skim read this as you were talking about it because I actually thought this was I wasn't even sure we were going to review this. I didn't even know Tom Taylor wrote it. I sort of thought this was going to be, this was out of continuity and what have you. And well, I guess I'm surprised. This is just artistically, it's not for me. It just so happened you mentioned that creative team of Tom Taylor. It was what was it? It's a seven
Seven Secrets.
Seven Secrets. I actually collected that series, and I was sort of underwhelmed by it, and I think it ended. I don't even think it actually ended. I mean, it ended, but I don't know if, I think it ended on a. Is it just on hiatus?
They left it open ended so they could come back to it if they wanted.
Yeah, yeah. But it never really resonated. It started off high, but then it never really resonated. This is. I love the concept. Who doesn't love King Arthur? I'm old school. Honestly, I'm just not into this style of art. So it's not my cup of tea just on the art alone. I just can't get into this kind of art. It's just a little bit too manga and stuff. It's just not my cup of tea. But I can see this as a Saturday morning cartoon. Sure. Great story. I would probably be more inclined to read something like this if the start was more of a traditional house stylist, especially if this is going to be, if this in some way, shape, or form is going to at some point be incorporated into the DC universe, because which is not outside the realm of possibility, I suppose. That would be kind of cool. But it would need to, for me, it would need to have just stylistic change. But narratively, seems like a decent enough story. Singing swords, talking swords, King Arthur. What the heck? I still to this day love Camelot 3000. But that's Brian Boland art, so it's very different style. But
yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? So, I mean, Taylor and Dina Kulo here, they're I mean, speculator alert. These characters are in the main DCU, and this is their first appearance. So a lot of first appearances here. If any of these characters hit, you're going to wish you had a copy.
Good point.
Yeah. But I take your point, and that's almost why it surprised me so much, because I'm not a really fan of the manga style either. And that's like, if it was an art style that I'm more inclined to enjoy, I may have liked it even. It may have ranked even higher on my list. But that's my point of how good the story is, because despite it not being my favorite style of art, it still made my top 5. But, and again, I don't begrudge Daniel his style. His style is his style, and that's fine. And I think his style does work for this story. But I also would expect if this does do well, and I kind of expect that it will, that because they're the co-creators of these characters, we're going to see, like, I just don't see Tom Taylor wanting to do more of this unless it's with Daniel. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree in terms of, man, it would be great to see this with a different art style, but I just don't see that's ever gonna happen. So anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Supergirl number 5. This is from writer Sophie Campbell. Paulina Ganeshow and Rose Crampy are the artists. Kendall Good and Marisa Louise handle the colors. Becca Carey on letters. Now, I've been really enjoying the Supergirl series up to this point. Sophie Campbell has been writing and drawing it, but I just mentioned we have 2 artists on here, neither one of them being Sophie Campbell. So I imagine just maybe a chance for them to get a little caught up on the writing aspect of it before hopefully they're returning to the art duties. Because I didn't really care much for the art on this particular issue. It's an issue that's focused on the super pets. We've got some Streaky, we've got some Crypto the super dog. It's It kind of makes sense, you know. Crypto's definitely having a moment right now, so it makes sense that you would want to have
Yeah.
an if you focused on him. But this is a big tumble for me because typically Supergirl has been in the top five, um, and for me this issue came in at number 13, next to last. So yeah, and a lot of that to do with the art. So as much as I love Crypto and Streaky, yeah, the art was what pulled this down for me. So um, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I put this ahead of Court because I actually I was more entertained by this than Court for the simple reason that I don't know. I embrace the silliness of this with Crypto and that super bunny rabbit. Uh, how the bunny rabbit, they both, Crypto's thinking that the bunny rabbit wants to play. The bunny rabbit starts off thinking that Crypto is her mortal enemy and is attacking Crypto with bunny heat vision, and it's actually quite comical. It's uh, the power of this the silliness of this bunny rabbit, but yet the bunny rabbit seems to take it very seriously that she's got to attack Crypto, and by the end, through their shenanigans, they end up becoming allies and fighting this. I guess the shark, this shark creature that's looking for Supergirl, and it's related to a plot point from the previous issue where this I guess what is it? This kind of like gel-like substance, or this substance is possessing it is possessing these. It's been eaten by these kittens, and it's giving them powers and what have you. So it's actually continuous, and it's tied into the past story, and it is fun. It's not really my cup of tea. I got to tell you, this series is so interesting. Last issue, it tickled my period fanboy fantasies a little bit because there was a lot of sexiness in it, and this one has kittens and pets. So it's kind of like all over the place, but it does so in a way that does it more effectively than the comic like Harley Quinn does. So crazy. Funnily enough, I actually sort of enjoyed this, despite it being near the bottom of my list at number 12. It did put, ironically enough, the most smiles on my face from all the comics this week.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like the Super Pets. I don't like them enough to overcome this art, unfortunately. But the main cover is awesome. There's a Stanley Lau art germ covers of Supergirl. That's great. There's also a Dan Mora cover box variant that's great. So it has some great covers, but it's not enough to pull it up for me from where it's at. Anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum, Book 2. W. Maxwell Prince as the writer, Martin Morazzo on art, Chris O'Halloran on colors. Good old Neon handling the letters. If those creators' names sound familiar, this is the creative team that brings us Ice Cream Man every month over at Image. I really enjoyed the first issue, and I was surprised how much how far this tumbled down my rankings. I
Yeah.
didn't really enjoy this issue. Maybe it's because I just don't like to see Superman do non-Superman like things. I can't really put my finger on what it was about this that I didn't enjoy, but um, like even the sequences with Batman. So there's certainly stakes here. Superman grows to a giant size, to the point he's going to get so big he's going to start to have his own gravity and what have you. That Batman's trying to find a cure. Luther gets involved trying to exploit the situation. So there definitely feels like stakes. But I don't know. It felt a little messy to me. And again, I don't know what it was beyond that had it tumbling so far for me. So I'm pretty sure that Kryptonite Spectrum, it was definitely in my top 5, if not my top 3 last time. This time, this issue 2 falls all the way down to number 10 for me. And yeah, they could even make the argument for putting it swapping it with my number 11. But anyway, I think you probably enjoyed it more than me. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm actually dropping it even lower now. I put this at number 8. And I'll be more a little bit more harsh on it. I think the story is just is so one dimensional. I didn't find the story. I thought this was so tropey and so predictable. Like there was nothing really. Like the first issue had the first issue had a central conceit where it was kind of interesting with the time displacement, where that because the effects of the cobalt kryptonite in the first issue had an impact on time displacement, and it was interesting how the story took place, and how Superman was experiencing sequences in the story out of time, and that was really cool, and what they did with the paneling, I thought that was really creative. This one was just really, really boring. Superman just gets bigger. It ends up that the kryptonite that affects him this issue has all lead shield. It doesn't lead shielding. It can leak through lead shielding, and so Superman's been slowly possessed by it, forcing him to grow large. Lex Luthor then sees it and wants to infect him with red kryptonite. So Superman's dealing with the effects of two types of kryptonite. And then chemo comes into play, and the Justice League are just sort of reacting to it, and 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 everyone's just sort of reacting to it. It just seemed it just seemed boring to me. And then at the end, Shazam shows up, and now I guess Superman's going to be small next issue. I don't know. Maybe this is maybe this is just a miss. I mean, you can't hit. Sometimes stories have a lull period in between, because this is a series. And we're dealing with different types of kryptonite, and the first issue with that kryptonite that made him be screw up linear time was really cool. But this making him big is boring. Maybe that's why, and maybe we'll have more interesting effects of kryptonite in future issues. But the story felt really derivative to me, and just really dropped down to number 8 for me this week. I was disappointed with it. I didn't mind the art. The art was kind of interesting, but at the same time, the story was its major weakness in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. It definitely feels one note. So we'll see. All right, up next we have Trinity, daughter of Wonder Woman, issue number 4, written by Tom King, art by Bele Ortega, colors by Alejandro Sanchez, letters by Clayton Cowles. Very heartfelt issue with Trinity, or Lizzie, I guess we'll call her. She's definitely, it focuses on the youngest of the versions of her, interacting with Alfred on the morning of the day that Bruce Wayne and Catwoman are supposed to get married. So obviously this is in the past, right? Tom King's going back to the past of one of his own stories, and there's some funny moments with Bruce, in his wedding tux. They're about to get married, what have you, and he steps in poop from the corgi that Damian had turned into. It's kind of funny, but anyway, this comes in at number 12 for me, just because, again, it's I just don't know why this is necessarily needed, but which is interesting because I ranked that before Rocky and I had a conversation before we started recording about what the purpose of this series is, and that actually was a little bit of a light bulb moment, because he was asking. We get a lot of Steve Trevor in here. Now the majority of this issue does take place in the past, as I mentioned, because Alfred's still alive, obviously. But there are scenes with Steve Trevor who looks like he's trying to cross a river in the underworld. My assumption is to get back to the land of the living. And there's a moment where Alfred asks Lizzie if he can do anything for her. And she said, yeah, you can help my dad. She's never met him at this point in her life. But Alfred takes that to heart. And so later, we see a figure who, and it's not clear. I mean, it's pretty clear that it's Alfred, but it's not, he's in shadow. We're not shown that it's Alfred, and he's in a boat going the other direction on that same river in the underworld. So, it very well may be that the purpose of this series is to bring Steve Trevor back. And it may be that Alfred, who is, dead in current time, current state of the DCU, may be there to help Steve Trevor return to the land of the living. So, but all that being said, while that's cool, and maybe that's what Tom King, always had in mind from the moment he killed Steve Trevor, what have you.
Remember, he also killed Alfred. He also killed Alfred.
Yeah, he also killed that. But it wasn't his choice to kill Alfred. He had it set up to be that Bane was doing that as like a mind trick, and right. It wasn't really going to be Alfred. It was going to turn out to be somebody that I remember what Tom told me. It was going to be somebody that Bane had like plastic surgery or something done on to make him look like Alfred, and then Alfred was going to find out that he was like held captive somewhere else. And Dan Didio was like, no, kill him, kill Alfred. So if you're mad about Alfred being dead, blame Dan Didio, not Tom King. There's plenty of reasons to be mad at Tom King, plenty of reasons to be mad at Dan Didio for that matter. But there's probably no reason good enough that an event that happened in comics to be mad about anybody. Like I think back to the death threats that Tom was getting because Batman and Catwoman didn't get married. So stupid. But anyway, getting back to my idea, it's like I kind of wish Tom hadn't killed Steve in the first place, only because I feel like death in comics has become such a cliche that everybody comes back, so it doesn't really have any meaning. So why bother doing it? But it could have been that he wanted to use it as a plot point in this story, which is fine. But I was telling Rocky, like, I think I like Steve Trevor more than I like Wonder Woman as a character. So I'm all for Steve Trevor coming back. But all that being said, at the end of the day, this is still a story about Trinity, regardless of age. And she's a little annoying here, but she's cute. I have to admit, when she gets older, she's just annoying and the cute's not there anymore. So I say all that to say, I still don't like Trinity as a character. And this is still a book that's about her. So I'm sort of predisposed not to like it. But if it does bring Steve Trevor back, I will be glad that it exists, I guess you would say. And I also will admit that the Bele Ortega art is fantastic. She is so good. She is so good. I don't think she gets the credit she deserves for what a fantastic visual storyteller she is. Like great transitions from panel to panel, wonderful detail. She does this thing with her style that's so awesome that I don't know that I've ever seen anybody do it so well. You and I have commented in the past on artists who just can't seem to draw children to look like children. Trinity looks like a little girl.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
And she does a fantastic job. Yeah, she does and drawing these three Trinities at different ages. And she does a fantastic job of making them all look their age. But she also makes adults look like adults. And there's also tons of detail in the background. To have an artist that can pull that off, and most artists will tell you they hate drawing dogs, horses, and cars. And, she's purposely drawing corgis, and they look authentic as well. Having all those, they're almost like different art styles in the same book, and doing it well, that's not easy to do. So a lot of credit to the artistic team. Colors are great in this as well. So, if this was about, if I just like Trinity as a character a little bit more, this probably would climb the ranks. But it's also probably a series that maybe once I understand the point of it, because I think that's what you were getting at earlier when we were talking about, like, what's the point of the series? We kind of don't know. Like, why does the series exist at this point? Because if it's just chasing shape-shifted Damian Wayne and John Kent corgis through time, that just seems kind of silly and unnecessary. But again, if the actual point of the series is to bring Steve Trevor back, that'll be interesting that Tom made the series be about something other than what we thought it was going to be about. So anyway, not in my top 5, but I talked a lot about it because there's a lot to consider. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Rocky, but feel free.
Yeah, I just wish I knew what this series is going to be. Wouldn't that be cool if Tom King's trying to redeem himself for the role that he played in Offing Alfred? You can blame Dan Didio all you want. You're the writer. You did it. You came up with it. And to bring Alfred back, or even have Alfred, and it likely is Alfred because, and by the way, I got to give a shout out to what the mysterious person says. It says, the mysterious person in black on the river Styx talking to Steve Trevor says, nothing is impossible. Well, who says that? I'm pretty sure Alfred got that from a young Trinity. So it very well could be Alfred in the afterlife and playing a role.
Maybe Alfred and Steve Trevor both come back. I would be all for that.
Yeah, we shall see. I guess my only frustration is and again, it's one of those things where, I mean, full disclosure, like this is not, I don't have this physical copy. I don't have this series on my pull list because it just wasn't. It's Trinity, and it's just not on my pull list. Bele Ortega's art is fantastic, and by the way, I got to give a shout out. Your Purian fanboy in me, Bele Ortega. You draw an absolutely gorgeous Catwoman in her wedding dress. She looks absolutely fantastic, as good or better than the whole slew of artists that did the Batman and her wedding that never happened and anniversary issue. So kudos to her. She's a great artist. I just want a series like this on something major that would happen like that, the return of Steve Trevor, to know that it takes place in a series like this that on the surface is not obvious to me should be in continuity or a little bit. It feels like it's kind of all ages. It's it's it it frustrates me. But if I have to end up getting this whole series at the end just for that, so be it. And speculator alert, this might be for people who are speculating, maybe pick up this series because I don't know what the sales are like on this, but if they're not as high on than the mainstream books, this might be a series that people want to get, especially like you say, if Alfred or Steve Trevor are returning and it originates in this comic. Wow. Sorry, you're on mute, my friend.
Yeah, that would be very unexpected, but I think a very welcome for a lot of people. Very welcome event in DCU because again, Steve Trevor and Alfred I think are both beloved characters. So
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Up next, we have Action Comics number 1090, The Speed of Life. This is from writer Mark Waid, art by Skylar Patridge, colors by Yvonne Placencia and Matt Herms, letters by Steve Wands. I can't remember. Did this make my top 5? No, this one came in at number 6 for me. I did enjoy it. There's a funny moment at the beginning where Clark flies too fast and burns up his clothing. And he shows back up in front of Mom and Pa Kent naked, or not completely naked, but yeah, showing things he doesn't want to show. There's some heartfelt moments between Clark and Lana. Really funny moments, things that only Mark Waid would think about. Does Superboy have super pheromones? Is that why Lana's possibly attracted to him? What have you? So yeah, a lot of meta stuff here. But the reason it didn't make my top 5 is the actual action sequences or what have you, and in General Lane or whatever. It wasn't that interesting to me. It just felt a little bit cliched. So that's why it dropped a little bit in my opinion. But anyway, what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
It came in at number 9 for me. Reading this issue, it made me realize that in some respects, in all aspects, as much as I love Superboy in Smallville, I get a feeling of, I guess I can't go home again. I'm just not feeling it. These young Superboy adventures, even though I wish I was. I think what Mark Waid's trying to do is, how the Silver Age with Lois Lane, how by today's standards, Lois Lane is kind of a fool. She's a female fool and pining over Superman, and ignoring Clark Kent in the Silver Age stories. Here, I think we're trying to cheat that a little bit by having Lana, and it makes more sense for Lana to pine over Superboy as a young teenage girl. Of course, you're going to pine over Superboy, and so I kind of like that element of it. And she's got a scrapbook and everything else, and Clark Kent doesn't even know what powers he has. He's speculating maybe I'm going to get telepathy when I get older. Maybe. I mean, Clark Kent legitimately doesn't know he doesn't know exactly what powers he's going to develop, or maybe there's other powers he has that he. So I like that Mark Waid is showing that Clark Kent is legitimately has these fears and concerns, and he's not even sure about the effects that he might have on people, which is very interesting because last issue we talked about Captain Comet warning Samuel Lane about the potential negative effects of having this Superboy running around, and so we have further developments on that. And that there's further machinations there that lead to Superboy being, while Superboy does some good this issue, he seems to be he may be set up by Captain Comet, which sort of answers our debate we had last issue, because he does end up getting arrested at the end of this issue by the United States Army. So and obviously I think unfairly. So we'll have to see what the fallout is from that. But this is story-wise, this is very well done by Mark Waid. So again, it just, for whatever reason, it just didn't make my top 5.
Yeah, and I fully expect to find out that these villains are actually somehow working for Sam Lane. Like we know how devious he is and what have you. One of the things that is interesting is that, again, this has been at the very, very beginning of Superman's career. Clark's career as Superman, Kal-El, whatever name you want to call him, just how early he meets Sam Lane, long before he ever meets his daughter, and this is the current canon in DC because Mark Waid's calling the shots when it comes to Superman's timeline. I don't know that that's ever been the case before in Superman's history that he meets Sam Lane before Lois. I could be wrong, Haven't read every Superman comic ever, but I think that's an interesting change.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Red Hood #1, The Tower, written by Gretchen Felker Martin. Jeff Spokes is the artist, including the colors, and Becca Carey on letters. Now, for me, this came in at number 5. Actually, I'm going to change that. I'm going to change it to I'm going to put it at 4. I'm flip flopping because I did really enjoy it. It's in your top 5 as well.
It is, yeah.
So yeah. So go ahead and give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, I love Jeff Spokes' art. I mean, I love his art. The last time we saw his art was on the Jenny Sparks series by Tom King, or at least that's the last art that Jeff Spokes did that stands out in my memory. He's probably done some more work other than that, but I just love this art, and it's so perfectly suited for Red Hood. It feels very. This is I love the plotting here. I got to give full props to Gretchen Felker Martin, the writer. Wow. Red Hood finds himself in this town of New Angelique, where apparently a number of police officers who work for the department, they end up, they're all killing themselves. And the last thing that the various police officers do before they kill themselves is they say that the tower says hello. And they kill themselves. They shoot themselves in the head. And it's very graphic, and they even film it. They put it on, might even be on social media. I got that impression. And Red Todd finds himself going to New Angelique and doing some investigating. And I can tell it's a new writer, and I say this with great respect. It's not a put down. Gretchen Felker Martin, who I'm not familiar with. If he's written something else, I apologize. I'm not familiar with his writing. Gretchen Felker Martin, he sort of relates. Pardon me?
Gretchen is a female name. Yeah.
Sorry. She references Jason Todd and makes numerous references to Jason Todd, talking about how, when he came back, he was upset with Batman for not killing the Joker and what have you. So it's a little bit old. Again, raising issues that Jason Todd has already dealt with in other stories, but he's dealing with it again this story. But that's fine because she wants to have her fun too with that plot point. I love seeing the Huntress and Jeff Spokes. I love Jeff Spokes, the way that the way he designs the Huntress's outfit here. I don't see the Huntress enough in comics. I think this is Jeff Spokes' unique own design. I stand to be corrected on that, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Again, the Pyrian fanboy in me, big smile on my face. Visually, I think these two are meant to have more adventures together. Red Hood and Huntress, to me, these are like birds of a feather, man. They both are dysfunctional in multiple ways. They both have issues. They both have violent pasts. I mean, my God, they should work together more. And naturally, they don't want to work together because they don't play well with others. I mean, the Huntress has always been sort of like on the outs with the Bat family. So is the Red Hood. I mean, these two are made to be dysfunctional and work together. And in this opening issue, there's just so, it progresses the plot so well. It sets up the plot so well. And there's, Red Hood has an in on the police department in New Angelique, and there's this new character called Royale that is very short-lived, ends up betraying Red Hood. Battle at the end, and the mystery pulls us into next issue. I thought this was excellent, and I sometimes get tired of Red Hood. I kind of wish Red Hood would go back with the Outlaws, but then we get a series like this, and damn, it's so good. I don't mind Red Hood being alone and seeing the Huntress. I got to tell you, this is a really good issue, and I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing so far from this writer. The dialogue is clear and crisp. The exposition is not too heavy. We get just enough information. The dialogue's not too heavy, and the exposition is light enough. It allows the art to shine, and the color work is fantastic. I got to give a shout out to is there a color? Does Jeff
Spokes does his own colors.
Oh, he does his own colors. Compliments to Jeff Spokes because his cover work is his color work is fantastic. But I really really love this issue. It was easy to place this in my top 5. I'll reveal. I actually put this in my number 5 position. I'll reveal that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. So Gretchen Velker Martin. That's why I was quick to um, correct you when you were saying
Thank you.
Yeah, she is trans. So I want to be clear that we don't mean anything by Rocky just didn't realize it was a woman.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we don't need any hate mail or whatever that we're trying to like dead name somebody or use the wrong pronouns or whatever. Completely unintentional. Relatively new writer. Had an award-winning novel called Manhunt that came out just in 2022, and it has other novels or whatever. So I appreciate that DC is reaching out to these new voices. And like so many times we hear, oh well, I'm sure she got the gig because she's trans or whatever. Like, no, it's fucking good. Read it and see. Don't just assume there's some sort of agenda. Because here's the thing. I like Red Hood. I like Jason Todd as the Red Hood much more than I ever enjoyed him as Robin. But that being said, for me, the character's been problematic at times because so many writers they go back to the trauma and lean on that crutch of, oh, Jason Todd's got trauma because he was beaten to death by the Joker with a crowbar. And he starts to become a little one note. He starts to become defined by that trauma and only that trauma, and not fleshed out as somebody else who, or as somebody who has more dimensions to his character than that, right? And like I can personally identify with that. I mean, there's something that happened in my life. You guys don't know about it. Rocky doesn't even know about it. That was very traumatic, by far and away the kind of the had the biggest impact on my life. Ever since it happened. There was an accident, and I won't go into details beyond that. But I understand that, right? I understand people looking at me and only seeing, when they look at me, only seeing that and think that I'm stuck in that moment, right? And that moment was a while ago, and I've moved past, and my life's different now, and what have you. This is the same thing with Jason Todd. Yes, that moment's always going to impact his life. Being killed by the Joker, being resurrected. Yes, he's always going to carry, a piece of that around with him, but that was a long time ago now. The guy has evolved and grown, and yes, that's going to affect his decisions and affect, who he is and the way he perceives things, but it's not the only factor. It's not the only thing. It doesn't completely define him as a character. And I feel like there's writers that forget that, or that lean into it too much. They look at Jason Todd and they say, oh, who's Jason Todd? Well, he's the Robin that was killed by the Joker. He's come back and he's angry. And that's all there is to him. There's so much more to Jason Todd than that. And at times, there's been writers who have done a better job of handling that, and there's writers that have done a worse job. As much as I was disappointed with the 3 Jokers, Jason Todd played a big role in that. And I didn't necessarily care for the way Jeff Johns handled Jason Todd in terms of his anger and wanting to get revenge on the Joker and what have you. In that story, one of the things I did love about that story was how it opened up the dynamic between Barbara Gordon and Jason Todd a little bit, because it's another aspect of the character, which could be a very important aspect, a potential to be an important aspect of the character, a possible relationship with Barbara Gordon. I mean, we know, based on how long it took the 3 Jokers to come out, in the meantime, DC leaned into Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon, and that relationship had been established. So there was no chance for Jason Todd and Barbara Gordon to get together at the time, because, again, it just took so long for 3 Jokers to come out. But at the time they conceived it, it was a possibility, and it could have been, in a different timeline with things coming out a little more on time. It could have possibly happened. So one of the things I love about what Gretchen is doing here is that she's going beyond just the surface of Jason Todd and saying, who's Jason Todd? Oh, he's the guy that can't get over the fact that he was killed by the Joker and he's still pissed off about it. There seems to be so much more nuance to him. Could that nuance still be kind of negative, perceived as negative? He's lonely, he's depressed, he's not in a good place in his mind. He's because he is by himself and he's not in Gotham. And the other thing that this does, it references events from Batman Hush too, which is interesting because, you know, you and I talked about when Batman Hush, when we first read the first couple of issues, we we're like, well, this seems like Jeff Loeb is forgetting all the ensuing events that happened since Hush came out. Now Hush 2 is picking up like what, a month, 2 months after Hush, the events of the first Hush storyline. So that doesn't necessarily work. It's problematic. But Gretchen here is referencing that, and part of the reason it seemed to me anyway that Jason Todd was in, you know, on a different continent, you know, pursuing something completely different than being in Gotham and being estranged, is because it seems like she's intimating that those events that we saw in Hush 2 did happen. So if that's the case, then that could be the starting point. That could be the catalyst that allows Jason Todd to evolve, not just when hopefully in the hands of Gretchen writing him, but in the hands of anybody writing Jason Todd, where we can finally say, this is a fully realized character. I'm not saying he needs to heal completely, because again, he's always going to carry that with him. But maybe we can move past where it's Jason Todd as the cliched, angry, sort of black sheep of the Batman family, who's a wild card, who has the hair trigger temperature, who could, hair trigger temper rather, who could kill at any moment, right? And there have been times where people have done it. I think was it Matthew Rosenberg? We really enjoyed his Red Hood story, and again, part of the reason we enjoyed it, I think, is because he was trying to evolve Jason Todd, but then the events of Hush 2 happen, and it seems like he's right back into the old, you know, the old spot. So I feel that we could use a Jason Todd that's a little more nuanced, as opposed to the one-dimensional character. I think it's time for that, for Jason Todd as a character. He's always going to have darkness in him. You know, we could go back and look at something as recent as the Jeff Lemire, Dustin Nguyen, Jason Todd, Robin, Batman series, where even Jason, you know, kind of self-aware as a very young kid, is saying, I think there's something wrong with me. I think I'm broken in a way. It would be nice to see him kind of move beyond that, but he's not going to ever completely leave it behind. Kind of like maybe an alcoholic is somebody that we could kind of compare him to, right? Like, just because an alcoholic stops drinking, which in turn stops the self-destructive behavior, doesn't mean they stop being an alcoholic. So just because Jason stops being so angry and having that hair trigger temper doesn't mean that he's still not the potential for him sliding back and snapping at some point doesn't exist. But I don't know. I'm ready to read some different stories from Jason Todd instead of kind of getting the same old thing time and again.
Well, you can remove the dysfunction from the jerk, but you're still left with the jerk.
Yeah, exactly. There is a Jim Lee cover, which, hey, don't forget, this is the guy that got killed by the Joker. It's literally Red Hood standing in front of what looks like Jim Lee's interpretation of his dead body on the cover of that famous Batman issue. There's also a Brian Bolland cover, which I think is the one that I ordered, just because it was a fantastic Brian Bolland cover. And the last thing that I'll say is I agree with you with Huntress, and maybe we didn't get Jason Todd and Barbara Gordon. I wouldn't be opposed to a Jason Todd Huntress romance, but Here's what I don't want, and I could definitely see it going this way. I don't want their romance to be this like this volatile love-hate thing where they're constantly fighting and bickering and like sometimes literally fighting, you know, hand to hand or whatever. I care about you, but you know, for some reason, you know, we can't. Like, wouldn't it be nice if we still have the Jason Todd that has an edge, and this version of the Huntress definitely has an edge as well? But could we actually have, if they start a romantic relationship, to actually have some tender moments between the two of them, where if they do get angry, it's channeled outward rather than having that cliche of, oh, they love each other, but they just can't seem to get along. I really don't want to see. I would rather not have them get involved than have that, because again, Jason Todd is such a cliche in so many ways. I really hope we don't get that cliche. So anyway, I loved it. The Jeff Spokes art, you talked at length about how fantastic Jeff is. I'm a huge fan of Jeff Spokes. From the time that he did Jenny Sparks, obviously with Tom King, but he did another series, and I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to look it up right now while you talk about the next book. But he did a series over at Top Cow that Brian Edward Hill wrote that was just fantastic. And I'll find it and let everybody know what it is. But while I do that, let's move on. Up next, we have Aquaman #9, written by Jeremy Adams. John Timms on the art, Rex Locus on colors, Dave Sharp on letters. This was in your top 5, and I'm not 100% sure, but I don't remember Aquaman being in your top 5 previously. Is this the first time? Do you remember?
Huh, that surprises me.
Or maybe I should
thought
say,
it was.
Yeah.
But,
I mean,
yeah.
I could be wrong. And if somebody out there knows, maybe Jeremy himself remembers. He probably keeps track. He's such an egomaniac. He keeps track of all his top 5 appearances. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Aquaman #9?
Well, this made my top 3. I quite enjoyed this, and we just did Who's Gonna Be King Omega, and I encourage everyone to check out Comic Source, Jace's Comic Source channel. Jace and I and our buddy Steve, who joined us, we sort of we went through all the various different battles, and we chose the winners, and ultimately we had our own choices for who would be crowned King Omega. One of the contestants who's going to be battling for the mantle of King Omega is Aquaman. And I just want to point out in this series that in the opening pages of this, we get a prophecy that has the picture of Aquaman, and it says, "He shall come from the end, the Omega from which it began, the dark tide that crashes upon the shores of his enemies, and an empty vessel to be filled, wielding blood and turbulent water stilled, God killer who controls all the tide and the seas." And it goes on. Aquaman, a God killer, Omega. Is this a prophecy hinting at Aquaman might be King Omega? Could Aquaman be the one that wins and becomes King Omega? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Wouldn't put it past Jeremy Adams to, throw some clues out there and have this little notch in his belt in the future by saying, "I told you guys." But, so I thought that was really interesting. Even if Aquaman doesn't win King Omega, I love the fact that this is, hey, maybe this is. Because Aquaman now, in this series, in this issue, as of last issue, we know he's like king of the, he controls the blue. His power level has been, his power set is still kind of ill-defined, but we know it's massively powerful. And if there is any doubt in this issue, after they come back from their adventures in the blue, after they give their blessing to the Queen Mara who died, the older version of Mara who died, he comes back with his older version of his daughter, Andine, or older version of his daughter Andrina, along with Ariane and Zan. And when he gets back, he goes to the Justice League just when Superman is possessed. And he ends up, it's very clear that Aquaman is powered up. Superman hits Aquaman as hard as he can. Superman is possessed, and Aquaman just barely flinches. And it's clear that Aquaman has a great deal of power. Batman, of course, and Wonder Woman want him to be tested, but of course Aquaman won't allow that. And ultimately he ends up going back to Atlantis. And then we got, in typical Jeremy Adams awesome fashion, we get at the end, Aquaman literally dives into Earth's ocean from the satellite, which is pretty cool. Talk about the highest diving board possible, jumping off the Justice League satellite, and then lands into the ocean. And then I'm a little bit confused at the end, but it looks like we thought that Atlantis, that the time displacement phenomena had happened, and that Atlantis was aged. Everyone at Atlantis was aged up, including Mara and his daughter. But it looks like Mara and a younger Andy are still alive, and I'm not sure what happened. Did they revert back? I'm not sure, but it ends with Mira and an infant Andy being there and present. So it's like, has it been undone? What exactly happened? I'm not sure. Are we going to have an older Andrina and a younger Andrina coexisting? What's going on? I'm not sure, but that I'm sure it's clearly going to be revealed next issue. But it was it's a great cliffhanger. And in any event, I'm so glad to see Mira alive, because Mira's, again, I'm a Pyrian fanboy. She's hot. You don't kill off hot women. Come on. So I'm happy with that.
You
And
don't
this was
read
a really fun
comics.
issue.
If you don't think hot women get killed off, you don't read comics.
Well,
Check your local. Check your local
refrigerators
refrigerator.
away. No more
Check your local
refrigerators.
refrigerator. You'll find plenty of hot women in there.
Yeah, that's right. I still miss Alex. Alex.
Yeah, poor
Anyways,
Alex.
it's
Yeah, Jeremy, if you're listening, can you bring Alex back, please? I mean, you're writing Green Lantern. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the emotional moment for Kyle Rayner if Alex were to come back? Now I get that Kyle's had other relationships. Donna Troy is the one that comes to mind, and I think there's been hints of him having a romantic relationship in the current run, but I can't think of with who.
Yeah, that's right.
Jeremy Adams, I challenge you to bring back Alex.
Isn't it Alex DeVille? Alex DeVille, isn't that her last name?
I don't remember what her last name is.
She was stuffed in the refrigerator by Major Force, and that led to the whole women in refrigerators thing.
DeWitt.
Simone wrote Alex DeWitt.
Yeah. Right. Alexandra DeWitt, known as Alex, photographer for a newspaper in LA. Kyle Rayner's first ally as Green Lantern, his girlfriend. Yes. Jeremy Adams, bring back Alex DeWitt. I can hear Jeremy already. I was going to do it, but editorial said I couldn't. Then you bring her back. You just give her a different name. You don't even tell. You don't even tell that you're going to do it.
Yeah. The next time Hal Jordan visits Hell, Alex DeWitt can walk out. Instead of Gnort. Yeah.
Well, I think you just have her. If editorial gives pushback, you just bring her back as another character. You don't call her Alex, and then later we find out. Yeah. Oh, this is not Stephanie. This is actually Alex DeWitt, and here's the flashback of how she was brought back, or whatever. I mean, Jeremy's a better, much better idea guy than me. I'm sure he could come up with something. So, all right, Jeremy, assignment has been handed out. Bring back Alex DeWitt. Anyway, that series I was thinking about with Jeff Spokes and Brian Edward Hill from Top Cow, it's Aphrodite 5. So Aphrodite 9, very famous, story, kind of in that same Witchblade, Cyberforce universe or what have you. And she's this, and again, like this cybernetic assassin warrior, super. You want to talk about super hot women? Co-created by David Finch. He was the one that handled the art. David Wall was the writer. But then we had a precursor, got an earlier model, which is called Aphrodite 5, written by Brian Edward Hill, the artist by Jeff Spokes. It's a fantastic series. I do recommend it. Anyway, getting back to Aquaman, this makes my top 3. I absolutely loved it. You're 100% right, Rocky, in talking about how we both, and even Steve as well, we both expect Aquaman to perform well and get deep into the DCKO tournament, as it were. For exactly, the reasons you were talking about. He's leveled up. He's the current avatar of the blue. He's more powerful than he's been in a long time. He's coming back here to Earth. He's amongst his peers in the Justice League. And I say that in a way maybe doesn't quite give it enough context that he's among his peers. He's never felt more like an equal to Superman and Wonder Woman. In terms of pure power, he has surpassed Batman. No, he's not a better tactician than Batman. No, he might not necessarily defeat Batman in a fight if Batman had enough time to prepare. We know that's what Batman's all about, setting traps for his opponent or what have you. But just in terms of power, he's more powerful and more on level with them than he's ever been. And I also like how he kind of, stands up for himself as well. I think, maybe it was a little bit subconscious in the past where he would take a little bit more of a deferential role in the Justice League and kind of go along with, whatever they said. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. They're back and they're not exactly sure. The rest of the Justice League, Aquaman and his allies are back. The rest of the Justice League is not exactly sure, what to think, or they're like, it's almost like they want to take him into a room and, debrief him. And, Batman talks about running some tests because Aquaman basically says he doesn't even know the extent of what he can do yet. And obviously Batman's worried about it. And Aquaman's like, no, I don't need any tests, whatever. I need to get down there and raise my daughter and be with my friends. And we need to kind of, process what we've been through or whatever. And Batman's like, and if we need you, and he says, yeah, just call. You know where to find me. And the look on Batman's face, like, you can tell that even he is not necessarily used to this kind of assertiveness from Aquaman. And I love it because when Jeremy came on the show to talk about the series before it launched, you know, he talked about Aquaman having basically two default personalities as he's been written. He's either been written as the comedic relief or he's the stoic, quiet guy. And we never really have gotten a personality for him. And now we're starting to get that personality, you know, and whether it took him leveling up in his abilities or whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying that he's standing up for himself. I'm enjoying that you and Steve and I all kind of are sensing that. And we've all, you know, placed him quite a few rounds into the DCKO tournament. Because again, this is somebody who's been through a lot, and he's not just getting angry as he has in the past or shutting down. He's you know, opening up to his friends. He's a little bit more self-aware and self-reflective, and it's like, oh my God, it's about time, right, for a character that's been around for over 75 years that we're, in my mind, getting like a definitive run. And I get that a lot of people will look at that Peter David run because that was a long run, and the argument could be made that that was a definitive run for Aquaman at the time. But what was his kind of personality? It was very of the 90s, right? He had the long hair, he had the beard, he had a harpoon for a hand, for God's sake, and his personality, he was just mad. He was just mad all the time. And it suited the time and where we were at and kind of the aesthetic that sold comics back then in the 90s, where he was just mad and, you know, there wasn't a lot to him. Don't get me wrong. I loved that run. I bought it every month. I read it. I loved what Peter David did, but I want to see, you know, just like we're talking about with Jason Todd, I want to see Aquaman evolve and be a little bit more than that, especially for a character that's been around as long as he has. And it feels like that's where Jeremy has been. Now, I was a little critical of this run in the beginning because I referenced that Jeremy saying he was going to give him personality, but the first 6 issues, so much was happening. You know, we talk about so much happening in Green Lantern Corps. Here we are again with another Jeremy Adams book, and so much was happening in those early Aquaman issues that I was like, wait, I thought we were going to get some character development for Aquaman. But instead, what we got was he was very decisive. He was very action-oriented. He was very mad. And I'm like, okay, I've seen that version, but now we're getting the payoff, right? Now we're getting the payoff of that. He believes Mira to be dead. He, you know, is alongside a daughter that he missed her whole childhood. You know, Jeremy, are you trying to trigger us all us DC fans? We missed out on the childhood of John Kent. Now we're missing out on the childhood of Adriana, even more so because it's even a bigger age gap. She goes from being an infant to being nearly an adult. But it does appear that because of the way time is screwed up, that, and again, this is, you know, relativity and it gets into like really huge concepts or whatever, so I won't get into it here, but there's a possibility when you travel very far in space, you also, as a byproduct, traveled through time. So it very well could have been when he was where he was, when Aquaman was where he was in kind of the realm of Dagon, that he had traveled to the future. And they mentioned the time bubble and time was passing quicker and what have you. And that could have just been what the people of Atlantis thought and didn't, because they didn't realize, because again, they traveled as well, right? Supposedly Atlantis disappeared, his family disappeared. They reappeared in the realm of Dagon. They may not have realized that they traveled as well. And there could have been some, you know, dilation or whatever. It would affected different people at a different rate. And that's why Mira aged up and, you know, Adriana aged up or what have you. But
Yeah,
as
good
Rocky
point.
said, when we see the end of this issue, we see Mira's alive, Adriana's still a kid. I'm glad. I'm really happy about that. And I imagine that that's going to be a focus point that I believe will be resolved before the DCKO event takes place. And that's purely a guess on my part. I have no basis for that. Maybe I'm just saying that because I hope that's the case. I don't want to have to wait till after DCKO to find out what's going on. I really want Aquaman because I like Aquaman as a character. I feel bad for what he's been through. I feel bad that Mira's dead. You know, he thinks she's dead. I feel bad that he missed out on his daughter's childhood. I want him to know that that's not the case and that they are there. Now, why he's seen Atlantis as destroyed It definitely seems like there's some kind of bubble around Atlantis. Maybe it's a magical spell. Maybe it's left over from Dagon. Maybe it's somebody else who's manipulating events and manipulating time or what have you. But I can't wait to find out. So I can't ever remember enjoying an Aquaman series. I've been an Aquaman fan for a long time. I collected that Peter David run. That was probably the first time that I collected Aquaman on a regular basis, and I've pretty much collected it ever since, through no matter who was writing it. The Jeff Johns run after the New 52 started, and then I can't remember who took over after that. I want to say like Rob Williams, maybe. I know Cullen Bunn did a few issues or what have you. But anyway, I love Aquaman, and I've been enjoying this run more than I ever have any Aquaman run. So really, really enjoy it. Not a surprise it's in my top 3. All right. Up next, we have Batman Dark Patterns, The Child of Fire Part 1. This is starting off the final story of the 4 3-part stories that we've had. This is a 12-issue mini split up into 4 3-part stories that do reference each other a little bit. Written by Dan Waters. Hayden Sherman is the artist. Fiona Farrell on colors. Frank Sudovic handles the letters. 1 issue in, it's maybe a little early to tell, but this feels like it's going to be my least favorite of the 3 stories. This issue just didn't grab me. It comes in at number 11 for me. What about you, Rocky?
Yeah, it came in at I switched it, so it came in at number 7 for me. I think it's got. I think I love this. I love the mystery surrounding Dr. Sarika on this issue. This is a pathologist that throughout this series from issue 1, Batman has always had a bad feeling about this Dr. Sarika, never really trusted him, and we learned something about the background. This is a story that centers on Firefly, Commissioner Gordon, because somebody's going around, and very horrifically, this issue starts off with somebody who sort of disguises themselves wearing this sort of like baby mask in a very horrific looking way, like almost like a straitjacket in a baby mask, and an odd looking outfit sort of pulls this couple into a burning fire, and the husband is burned alive, and the husband and the wife is barely alive, and it's quite horrific. And Commissioner Gordon speaks with Firefly in jail to sort of see if he knows anything about who this person might be. The idea of that, if perhaps the psychopath Firefly knows who the psychopathic arsonist is who's starting these fires, and then Batman himself, discovers or is told essentially that this Dr. Sarika originally came from a town where the precinct or the hospital that Dr. Sarika was originally at burned down, and that's what prompted him to come to Gotham looking for work. And there's some suspicion surrounding Dr. Sarika, and ultimately, that sort of builds the mystery. What really stands out here again is just the amazing color work. There's a page here. I mean, who's the artist? The artist
Hayden Sherman.
Hayden Sherman, of course, but my favorite page is because we know that we're burned victims, fire, burning victims, burning flesh, horror. There's a page where the human body itself is the layout, forms the boundaries of the panel. That the panel layout is incredible. It's a human body. It shows Dr. Sarika in the background. And in the head, you got the images of Batman in one, and you've got Dr. Sarika, sort of a flashback of Dr. Sarika, dealing in the past when he was dealing with his history of where he was prior to him coming to Gotham, and just the color work. It's just really, really good. And, it feels like the panel work itself tells part of the story. And that's what I find so interesting about this. I continue to say Hayden Sherman's best work is not in Absolute Wonder Woman. It's in this series. I can't believe it. And he's doing a great job in Absolute Wonder Woman. Kudos to him. His art's growing on me in Absolute Wonder Woman. But this series continues to his art continues to blow me away. So much so that even when the story is a little bit elevated, less, Dan Waters still doing a good job. But the art pulls this back in. So this is I recommend this issue, and I recommend. I mean, for fans of Hayden Sherman, if you're fans of if you like Absolute Wonder Woman and you love Hayden Sherman art, man, you got to pick this up because this is a great series artistically, and the stories are pretty damn good too.
If you want to see some absolutely amazing Hayden Sherman art, Dark Spaces Dungeon, I think it was IDW. Yeah, IDW. Yeah. Scott Snyder wrote it. It's a horror book. It has an incredible twist at the end. It is brutal. It's like true crime. It's about a serial killer who traps people in these, like, basically these dungeons. He puts them in pods and he buries them under the ground, and they're like sort of egg shaped. And over time, parts of the egg like push in, so they like their body gets like all deformed, broken bones or whatever. But he keeps them alive. He like feeds them. He shows up periodically, opens it, gives them food and water. Let's keep them alive, torture them. Oh man, it's brutal. It's brutal. And the Hayden Sherman art in it is just exquisite. So, again, I'm enjoying this. It's interesting. It's good. But I think this is going to be my least favorite of the three. But I mean, we're only one issue in. The final issue 12 could tie all four of these stories together, which would be really cool. So we'll see. All right, up next, this is in my top three. It's Batman and Robin number 25, The Quiet Man, part 1. Philip Kennedy Johnson is the writer, Fico Ossio on art, Marcelo Maiello on colors, Steve Wands on letters. This is, even though this is the third arc for Philip Kennedy Johnson on Batman and Robin, it's really his second story, because the first two arcs were the same story. It was a 12-issue arc with the Memento. So I'm really excited to see what Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to do on this next. Now you, Rocky, put it in your top 5, as far as I know. Give us your thoughts on it.
This story is very simplistic, but it's done so well and it's laid out so well. Philip Kennedy Johnson, Fico Ossio's art's fantastic. It sets the mood so well. We're introduced to a prisoner. We know his name is Sai. He's released from prison. He's released from Alkany State Penitentiary, and he ends up going somewhere. He visits a grave in front of an old dilapidated church that seems to be abandoned. It's implied that it seems to suggest that it's the grave of his son. He digs something up, and it looks like he opens up a box that he buried at his son's grave. It says "Feared mob boss dies in captivity" is an old newspaper clipping. So he speaks to his dead son. I love you forever, boy. Let's take one more trip together. So it becomes clear as the story progresses, as he goes to Gotham, he wants to confront the Penguin, this quiet man who's making a lot of noise, so to speak. He's a very quiet man, but he's not afraid to get violent as he goes to Gotham City, right in the middle of a gang war between the Penguin and Tiger Shark. And Batman, the new Batman, the Matt Fraction designed Batman, Batman and Robin, a good 1/3 of this issue is just them taking out Tiger Shark as he basically attacks the Penguin. And I gotta say, Batman does all the work for the Penguin, because Tiger Shark has no problem being very brutal and is willing to cause all kinds of destruction and damage and loss of innocent life. And very clearly, Batman and Robin are doing the Penguin a favor here. So much so that the Penguin literally celebrates Batman and Robin taking out Tiger Shark for him, apprehending him. Meanwhile, great character work by PKJ, continuing the development between the relationship between Bruce Wayne and Damian, and they decide to go to a movie together. Uh, they just took down Tiger Shark, and they're really hoping. Bruce Wayne is hoping for a reprieve, a couple of hours. God forbid, do we have enough time to go watch a movie? Can we have a break? And so he wants to take his son to a movie, and of course, it's the Monarch Theater, uh, which was interesting. There's really a real cool scene where Batman. Um, Kudos to Philip Kennedy Johnson. There's a game of chess, and all the pieces on the chessboard. It represents a continuous game between Batman and Ra's al Ghul. And every time Ra's al Ghul visits the mansion, usually by sneaking in or some other surreptitious way, they always have this ongoing game of chess. And as Bruce Wayne walks by this, he says, I'm winning our game, Roz. Gotham is safe and my boy's happy. He belongs here." And I thought that was just a wonderful scene. And it's without having Ra's al Ghul. How do you get Ra's al Ghul in the story without having Ra's al Ghul in the story and have it be a meaningful moment? That was a brilliant, brilliant move on the part of PKJ, and it's just very memorable to me. And and then at the end with the Quiet Man wanting to approach Penguin. Violence ensues. And who is the Quiet Man? Why does he want to confront the Penguin? Does he want to kill the Penguin or just talk to Penguin? Is he on a revenge quest? We don't know. On the surface, it seems not necessarily. This might be a very unsophisticated plot, but with PKJ, there's always a little bit more to it. So the character work, the Fico Ossio's art, fantastic. This quite easily made my top five. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. What are your thoughts?
My thought is I don't ever want anybody except for Philip Kennedy Johnson to write this series ever. The dynamic between Bruce and Damian is amazing. Whether they're Batman and Robin, whether they're trying to have a quiet night out as father and son, it's amazing. This feels foundational in terms of the events of this particular issue. Like, what are we going to have? What is this? What is the story of the Quiet Man? Who is the Quiet Man? So, it starts off and we see those scenes of the Quiet Man being released from prison. First thing he does, visit the grave of a loved one. I'm assuming it's a son that he lost. That feels like it's going to mirror, his relationship and what he with his son and what he's willing to do to get revenge is going to be, compared and contrasted and contextualized against the relationship between the father and son relationship between Bruce and Damian. I have full confidence that Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to handle that really well. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be contextual. It's possibly going to cause Batman to look at the Quiet Man in a different way and perhaps have hesitation about bringing him to justice for whatever, heinous things he's going to do to the Penguin, because Batman's going to be like, well, what if I was that guy? What if I lost Damian? What wouldn't I do? And in that way, it'll probably remind us of what makes Batman a hero. Despite his darkness, he chooses not to step over that line, which again is why I have such a problem when people are like, Batman should kill, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, the Fico Ossio art is fantastic, as you mentioned. I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I'm excited that despite us having the long journey of the first 12 issues and this being what feels like a new story, that there's still callbacks, right? Callbacks from Bruce, specifically when he says to Damian, like, yes, I want you to, Gotham is your home as well. I want you to be its protector, but I want you to, to feel it, on the other side as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of Damian possibly pursuing that career in the medical field that's been hinted at, following the footsteps of his grandfather, Thomas Wayne. I think that's, like, when I first saw that, when Philip first introduced it, I was like, man, what a fantastic idea, right? And what an evolution for Damian, a character that couldn't stand when he first showed up. He was such a brat and so selfish and so self-centered and so narcissistic. And what's like the opposite of that? Somebody who, takes the Hippocratic Oath and promises to do no harm and, wants to help people through healing. And the other part of that is, if you do take that, if you are Damian Wayne, and I'm thinking far into the future here, but if you are Damian Wayne and you promise to do no harm, can you continue as Robin when you're out there punching and kicking and breaking bones and, bruising people? I think back to kind of the the complexity of the story of Marv Wolfman's vigilante, Adrian Chase. And people
Right.
are going to go, wait, complexity? Adrian Chase? You mean the vigilante from Peacemaker who's a complete joke? No, not that version. Not that version, right? Like that. Vigilante is one of my favorite characters, but not that version. And I'm not saying that that version's not entertaining or whatever. But the version of vigilante that we got in the late 80s from Marv Wolfman, and Alan Moore even wrote some of those issues. Gil Kane did art on some of those issues. It was fantastic. But he was somebody, you know, he's a district attorney. He was attacked by a mob boss. His family was killed. And he, you know, eventually gained these powers, these abilities to regenerate and what have you. And he was almost like Marvel's or DC's answer to the Punisher, right? Like he would go out and kill people. But he eventually was appointed to the bench as a judge to fill, I think another judge had a heart attack or whatever. And he had this moral quandary, like, how can I say that I'm upholding the law as a judge and, you know, be in the courtroom or whatever if I'm out there every night breaking the law? And he eventually gave up being the vigilante for a little while. And I just remember the complexity of that story, and that story more than anything, like more than Dark Knight Returns, more than Watchmen or whatever, showed me that how mature and adult comics could be. And I really, really enjoyed it. And so we possibly could be getting that level of complexity with Damian Wayne in the future if he decides to, you know, become a doctor or whatever. Like that, to me, that's fascinating to think of Damian Wayne pursuing that and the kind of the moral quandaries that could come with that. And again, I hope Philip Kennedy Johnson, I mean, we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years down the line, if Philip's still writing, you know, seems unlikely that DC would let somebody write a book that long. It would break in all the records for longevity and writing a book. But you take my point. Like, I love what he's doing. He's laying the foundation not only for good stories that he's going to tell himself, but, you know, possible stories for other people and plot points for other people to mine in the future. So yeah, no brainer that this was in my top 3 actually. All right, last book we're going to talk about in detail is Absolute Batman number 12 from writer Scott Snyder, Nick Dragotta on art. Frank Martin handles the colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. This is not in my top 5. I don't want to say I didn't care for it, but yeah, it's number 9 for me.
Wow. That surprises
me. Absolute Batman is tumbling down the ranks of the absolute titles for me. And I'm not enjoying it. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the comic technically. Like technically, this is a good book. You know, the art is amazing from Nick Dragotta, like best work of Dragotta's career. I think the way Scott is pacing it out, the way he's doling out information, the swing, he's taking huge swings.
Yeah, he
and
is.
I am curious to see where it goes. However, the direction it's heading is just not a direction that I'm enjoying, that I want to go down. I don't want to go down this path. With the events that happen in this issue, it's basically Bane. Bane is the reason that all his friends turn into villains, basically, that become, you know, more of the versions of their characters that we're familiar with, whether it be the Penguin, the Riddler, Killer Croc, Two-Face, whoever. It's all Bane. I've never liked Bane as a character, so having Bane as the origin for the rest of the Batman's rogues gallery, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And this is just, and I get it, right? It's the absolute universe. It's supposed to be infused with dark side energy, but oh my God, how depressing and dark and horrific are the events of this book. And I just don't enjoy that. Like, there's enough negativity in the world outside my window that I don't need to read something that's just incessantly dark and depressing. Like, the argument could be made that Batman, this version of Batman, he hasn't had a win yet. And maybe that's the point, right? Maybe that's what Scott's getting at. Like, despite the fact that he hasn't had a win and he's been through all this horrific stuff, he does keep advancing forward. He does, you know, although at times in this particular issue, even, you know, Alfred's got to give him a little prodding. He's ready to give up. but I'm not enjoying how dark this is. I'm just not. It's not speaking to me. I mean, if
Yeah.
I want to read something dark, there's any number of horror books that I can go and read. Um, and I get that Batman tends to be one of the darker superhero books, less so in possibly in the hands of Matt Fraction, which is why I'm so excited for that run. Um, and I think Tom Taylor in Detective Comics is doing a good job of balancing dark with hopefulness. Um, there doesn't feel like there's much hopefulness in Absolute Batman, and I get it. I get, like, isn't that the point? Because it's in the Absolute universe, it's Darkseid's universe. There is no hope. And hey, you could be 100% right, but I'm just, again, like, I'm reading this. It's a technically well done comic, but if you're asking me to rank it, I'm not a big fan of the not hopefulness part of this, which is so interesting when you think about long term plans. Now we know that DC has been surprised. Absolute books have been selling fantastically. It's exceeded all expectations that DC has had. So does it change plans in terms of your publishing plan? Because maybe you had a plan, you know, um, editorially, like, okay, it's gonna last this long, and then we're gonna have this big event, DCKO. At the end of KO, Darkseid's gonna be defeated, and then the Absolute Universe goes away. Well, you can't make the Absolute Universe go away now. It's selling too well, right? So do you have to drag it out longer than you necessarily would have and not let it reach its natural conclusion? Like, how do you have Darkseid defeated and give the main universe that sense of hopefulness that you want it to have, and have a good story and have the heroes win the day, because that's what we expect in the DCU? How do you do that and allow the Absolute Universe to continue? I mean, you can do it. You can just say, hey, it was originated with Darkseid energy. He's no longer kind of the ruling god of that universe, but it just kind of continues off on its own, and maybe it becomes sealed off when Darkseid is defeated, and no one's able to get there anymore, but it would stay kind of dark because that's how it's been built over its whole entire lifespan of evolution. So there is ways you could do that, but I just wonder if the plan has changed. Like, hey, we were going to bring it to a close. You can't possibly bring it to a close now because too many people are enjoying it. And I think part of the reason that people are enjoying it and that it is selling so well is because it is a new jumping on point where people could jump on and you don't need to know anything else that's going on, and you can just read it for what it is. And if you are doing that, then, hey, great. I'm glad you're reading it. But for somebody like me who's been reading DC for decades and is used to that hopefulness, yeah, good job for all the creators that you don't have the hopefulness there. And I think in the Absolute Universe, and I think that's purposeful, but it is starting to wear on me a little bit. And I think Absolute Batman, the argument can be made, is the darkest book of them all. And so that's why it's falling down the list of titles for me, and why I have it ranked at number 9.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing your comments. I actually, what's interesting is I actually echo a lot of your sentiment. Yet I put this in my top 3, and honestly, I might change my mind as I process. I'm still processing this issue. When I first read this issue, I actually got physically sick. I felt physically ill. That image of what Bane does to Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, or I thought it was horrific. I thought it was absolutely horrifying. And at first, I got to say, I don't. My immediate reaction was I don't like the fact that now his entire rogues gallery was created by Bane. Or Arkham, and there's something about that doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. It all comes down to Bane. It feels a little bit Duke Ex Machina in one villain, almost like an uber super villain. Uber Bane. Bane is super smart because he was given chemicals. Bane has bigger muscles because he was given venom. Bane has given everything because he was experimented on more. And it seems a little bit too. It just doesn't feel right. On the other hand, it can also be cool because it could be setting up to make how awesome is Catwoman going to be, because Bane didn't do anything to Selina, so at the end we see Catwoman who shows up taking out they think they're being attacked by Bane, but it's actually just Selina showing up as Catwoman, and she sort of like takes out Alfred, who's carrying a big gun. we haven't really seen Catwoman in action. She's kind of a wild card here, so that's what I'm kind of looking forward to. On the and there is something to the fact that Batman in the absolute Batman universe, we do need a rogues gallery, and perhaps we were somewhat naive in assuming that his entire rogues gallery they're going to be his best friends. Well, at some point, there's got to be a fly in the ointment. Well, that fly is pretty big, and his name is Bane. And what's going to be psychologically Two-Face, as Two-Face says in this issue, a great line, says, if it's any consolation, Bruce, I only hate you half of the time. So you never know. Two-Face might be an ally. Who knows how Cobblepot's going to be? I thought the Riddler, what Bane did to the Riddler was particularly brutal. I mean, it looked like he pushed his eyes out of his sockets and his brain is exposed. There's definitely a horror element to the Joker here. Very interesting design. There's a page, the question mark of the Riddler is actually on his skull, which exposes some circuitry in his brain. He looks like I don't know if he's got computer circuitry. What the hell did Bane do? Uh, Anyways, it's really interesting. It's horrific. But then even Bruce Wayne himself, Batman himself, as Alfred points out, Bruce still has crap inside his body. Bruce technically is still a vehicle to feed venom into his brain and body. So Bruce Wayne himself, he's kidding himself. He doesn't. There's no way he's over this. He slept for 21 days before he woke up, recovering from the events of last issue. And then what happened to poor Wayland? Wayland wanted him to kill him because he's Killer Croc now and he's deformed. He's suicidal. Killer Croc wants to die. Bruce Wayne refuses to kill his friend. And per Penguin, Two-Face, Riddler. Oh my God! And we get a background on Wayland. We know that Selina and Bruce at one point they actually paid off one of the mobsters to. They found a way to pay off one of the mobsters to allow Wayland to win a fight without Wayland knowing about it. So because so there's some. It shows that Bruce Wayne and Selina are not afraid. They've dealt with the mob before, and they've played the game before. They're not as naive as perhaps as maybe originally I may have thought. Uh, Selina and Bruce are very much, both of them are people of the streets, and Selina Kyle, she knows she's the wild card there. Anyways, lots happened in this issue, but at the end of the day, I can't help but feeling that this is going somewhere, and in Snyder I trust. And the reaction that I got this issue, how it made me feel, the disgust that I felt, I think that is from the power of the is from the power of the art. Nick Dragotta's art. It is Dragotta, this issue, is it not? Yeah, Nick Dragotta. The power of his art was just visceral. It got a reaction out of me. The narrative is such. I'm disgusted. I hate Bane. I want Bane to get his comeuppance. And to be honest, as much as maybe I said I don't like this where the story's going, you know what? Maybe I do. Maybe I do. It's one of those things I just can't. I got too much of an emotional reaction to this issue to not put it in my top 5. And maybe my top 3. I'm still working on it, but I better make up my mind because we're close to pick of the week here. So, but anyways, I quite enjoyed this. Also, kudos to Snyder. The emotional reaction that Martha had when she sees that Bruce is still alive, I think was very powerful. So there was just so many emotional moments in this issue. I just could not put it. It had to be in my top 5, regardless of how I felt about what happened. So there you go.
Yeah, fair enough. And there's interesting people out there maybe saying, well, you talked about how, go read Dark Space Dungeon, which is super, obviously also it happens to be written by Snyder. And I talked about Hayden Sherman's art there and how brutal it gets. But then I'm talking about, well, this story gets brutal. I had the same reaction as you did. It felt physically ill when I saw the Penguin or whatever. So how come it's okay for Hayden Sherman to do horrific things in Dark Space's Dungeon and it's not okay in Absolute Batman? I'm praising one and I'm saying the other one's not working for me. Well, the whole point being this is a superhero book. And for me, my superhero books, I don't want them to be horrific. I want the horror to be in my horror and I want the superhero. And I get it, right? It's all about subverting expectations. And complexity of story. We expect more from our superhero stories than we've had in the past or what have you. But yeah, I won't get into it more. I think I've already said my piece. So let's go ahead and move on to some of the other book. That again, all the books we're going to talk about in detail this week. Pretty big week. We do have some other titles being released specifically for Batman Day that's coming up. There's a Batman Day Absolute Batman #1 version. There's a Batman Day Batman and Robin Year 1 #1. There's a Batman Day Year 2 #1, which is DC's finest. So it's a trade paperback of the Year 2 story, which originally appeared in Detective Comics, but it's a Batman Day, like it has the trade dress of the DC's finest, but it has a Batman Day like logo on it, and that was Mike W. Barr and Alan Davis back in the day. Gorgeous Alan Davis covers as well on that. There's also a Batman Day Gotham sampler #1, which gives a bunch of it has some pages from the Red Hood issue that we just reviewed. It has pages from Matt Fraction's Batman #1. So all of that stuff is out this week as well. And then I think I want to say that there's some reprints as well, but let me just double check on that. I'm not seeing them, but there are some collections as well. So Black Canary Best of the Best is getting a hardcover. That's the Tom King, Ryan Sook 6-issue mini where Black Canary fights Lady Shiva, which we really, really enjoyed. So that's having its collected edition hardcover come out this week. DC's Finest Horror, The Devil's Doorway trade paperback, which collects a bunch of horror from the late 70s. House of Secrets 81 through 85, House of Mystery 180 to 185, Phantom Stranger #5, Witching Hour 3 through 7, and The Unexpected numbers 113 through 117. It's 560 pages for $40. And then finally, if you've never read Hush, which it's always been in print, it's a DC evergreen for sure. We have yet another. There's so many different editions of this. If there's anybody out there who's like Hush is their favorite Batman story of all time, and they have to buy every version of Hush when it comes out, they must have like 4 or 5 bookcases full of Hush at this point, because we have a new version, Batman Day 2025, Batman Hush 20th Anniversary Edition hardcover, and it's got not like it has even a new cover. It's art we've seen before from Jim Lee doing Batman. But if you've never read it and you want a chance to check it out, it is something I'd recommend if you are not, it's like if you're not familiar with Batman. People know, I think worldwide people know who Batman is, but maybe you've never read a Batman comic. This is a good one to start on. You get an idea of who the different characters are, who the rogues are and what have their comic book versions. So it's not like it's a bad story, but it's not, I don't think it's held up over time as much as other things have. So anyway, those are the 3, kind of a smaller week for collected editions this week, which is fine because, man, we had a lot of single issues. So, all right, time for our rankings. I'm going to let you go first, Rocky. And then while I'm giving my rankings, I sent you a text you should read. But give your rankings first, and then I'll give mine.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you said you where did you send that? Sorry, the QR code. Sorry. I can send
I emailed it to you, but give us your rankings and then you can go
okay.
track it down while I'm giving my.
Yeah, so my rankings are my coming in at I think I had was it 14 was the court issue, Children of the Round Table. 13 was Trinity, Trinity, Daughter of Wonder Woman, issue 4. Number 12 was 12 was 12 was Supergirl. Number 5, 11 was Fire and Ice, issue 6. Number 10 was Birds of Prey 25. 9 was Action Comics 1090. Coming in at number 8 was Superman Kryptonite Spectrum number 2. Coming in at number 7 was Batman Dark Patterns 10. Coming in at number 6 was Green Lantern Corps number 8. My top 5, coming in at 5 was Red Hood number 1. Coming in at number 4 was Batman and Robin 25. Coming in at number 3 was Aquaman 9. Coming in at number 2 was well, actually, we review. We never reviewed Gotham by Gaslight, did we?
Yeah, we did.
We did. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
the second one we did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. God, my memory's going. Absolute Batman number 12 is coming in at number 2. Number 1, I put Gotham by Gaslight. Number 3, League of Justice was my favorite. I just enjoyed the Elseworlds tale so much. It brought me more of a joy. I put that above the visceral impact of Absolute Batman number 2. So that was
yeah, Gotham by Gaslight. I don't know if you guys noticed. I disappeared, but actually, my internet actually cut out while Rocky was talking. I came back on, so hopefully it didn't disrupt too much. But yeah, I wasn't here to hear most of what you had to say about Gotham by Gaslight. But anyway, so my rankings: number 14, Fire and Ice When Hell Freezes Over. Number 13 was Supergirl. Number 5. Number 12 is Trinity. Number 4. Coming in at number 11 is Batman Dark Patterns. Number 10. Coming in at number 9 for me was Absolute Batman number 12. And again, this is purely based on my own personal taste. Not like technically, I would have to put it in my top 5 because again, the pacing. The subversion of expectations, whatever. Yeah, it's really firing on all cylinders, but I'm pushing back on it a little bit by ranking it so low. Anyway, Birds of Prey, number 25, comes in at 8. Number 7, Gotham by Gaslight, number 2. At number 6, Action Comics 1090. At number 5 is Court, Children of the Round Table. At number 4, I have Red Hood, number 1. Then my top 3, I've got Batman and Robin, number 3. As Batman and Robin number 25, as my number 3. And then number 2, I've got the Jeremy Adams books 2 and 1 here. Green Lantern Corps with Jeremy and Morgan Hampton. Green Lantern Corps number 8 comes in at number 2. And then my number 1, my pick of the week, Aquaman number 9. Again, like just having a character that's been around as long as Aquaman and having like a writer bring something to him that other writers can build on. I mean, kind of similar to what I was saying about what Philip Kennedy Johnson is doing with the Batman and Robin relationship. Like that's just something special. I love seeing it. I love seeing Aquaman kind of stand up for himself. That's just that's just great. So that's my pick of the week.
I just want to say I got the QR code for the comic source. I got the QR code above Jace's head, and so you can check it out.
Yep, appreciate it. Again, any amount helps everybody. And don't feel obligated.
And he's gone silent.
The gauntlet has been laid down. In terms of Alex DeWitt, love to see you bring her back if at all possible. That would be great. That's not the reason that I put your 2 books 1 and 2. I really did enjoy them. I didn't even realize till after we were going through the rankings right now. I was like, oh crap, I put Jeremy's books 1 and 2. But yeah, man, bring back Alex DeWitt. That would be amazing. So anyway, as always, everybody, really appreciate the support. Again, like Rocky said, the QR code, you can scan that QR code. And that'll take you to the PayPal page. You can any amount helps to get me to New York Comic Con. Really appreciate it. And if you're going to be at New York Comic Con, again, I'll remind everybody, or I'll let everybody know, if I have enough donations come in and I'm going to be able to go. I'll obviously let everybody know that and be espousing my thanks to everybody that donated. But if you're going to be there and I'm going to be there, then yeah, if you want to get together, take a picture, whatever, I'm always happy to do that. I think I finally ran out of Comic Source lanyards. The 3,000 I ordered, 2019. I think I finally gave them all away. But anyway, appreciate the support as always. Don't forget, if you're listening to us audio only, and the Comic Source is available on all audio podcast platforms and apps. Just go wherever you get your podcast and do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. But if you are listening to us audio only, be sure you head over to YouTube so you can see the art as we're talking about it. You can see our smiling faces. It comes out every week on Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom, exclamation point. All the other Comic Source content comes out on the Comic Source YouTube channel, including that DCKO episode that we talked about before. So again, head over to YouTube, do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe. But then everything comes out on the Comic Source audio feed. So regardless of whether you're heading over to Rocky's channel or my channel on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, leave comments. Let us know your thoughts about these books. Let us know if you watch the DCKO episode, who your picks are, who you think's going to win it all. I don't want to give it away here, but it was interesting how, what 6 picks, what 6 characters that each of us had, or, each two, there's 3 of us, 2 picks each to be in the finals. So 6 picks total. Were all 6 of those different? Were they all the same? That was so interesting to me, how it all played out. It was so much fun. So again, we appreciate the support. We appreciate the engagement. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you know when new content comes out. Have a few interviews coming out this week, trying to get things in order. Got a lot of stuff going on. The car repair, as I was mentioning before, has been taking up a lot of my time and what have you. So anyway, I say all that to say we appreciate you being here. We know it was a bit of a long one. That DCKO is a long one as well. It takes a while to, 32 fighters down to 16, down to 8, down to 4, 2. It takes a while. So anyway, thanks for joining as always. Any last thoughts, Rocky?
Yeah, click on the QR code and let's get this guy down to New York.
Appreciate it. Well, that's going to do it, everybody. We'll talk to you on the next one.
Catch you later.